Hello again. As I've remarked before, I'm not in the slightest degree opposed to vaccines of any kind, provided always that no element of compulsion is involved. I consider it plainly wrong that people should be threatened with the sack for declining a vaccine, and I also believe that parents have the responsibility for deciding whether or not their children should be vaccinated against measles, COVID-19, human papillomavirus or anything else. The present British government, not content with driving a coach and horses through their manifesto promises, the ones which persuaded people to vote them into power, of course, have now chosen to try and deprive parents of the right to decide on medical treatment for their children, believing that the state makes a better parent than any mother or father, something with which I tend to disagree. In fact, it's a perspective which I utterly reject, and it was one of the reasons that I did not send my daughter to school. I didn't care for the idea of handing her over to the state to be indoctrinated in what is felt to be the correct ways of thinking today. Until a few weeks ago, nobody would have dreamt of sticking a needle into a 12-year-old without the express permission of that child's parents. The only exception to this would be in a dire emergency such as a road accident or something when the parents could not be contacted. Other than that, it would have been unthinkable. Even for something as innocuous as an asthmatic child using an emergency inhaler kept at the school, it would be necessary previously to have obtained parental consent for the use of that inhaler. In the description to this video, I give a link to a parental consent form which would be held at the school for an asthmatic child and give permission for the child to have an inhaler administered. This has all been abandoned now. Because there are plans afoot to vaccinate all secondary school children against COVID-19, the concept of Gillick Competence has been brought in, the first time that this has ever been used in the context of injections. The case of Victoria Gillick was quite a curious one. She was a very devout and God-fearing mother, Catholic, and in the 1980s she heard that some clinics would be prepared to prescribe the contraceptive pill to girls under the age of 16 without telling their parents. She went to court over this to try and have this policy declared unlawful, and the result was not what she had hoped. The legal ruling was that a child can consent to or refuse medical treatment if he or she is sufficiently intelligent and mature enough to make an informed decision. Despite this, doctors and nurses have always been very cautious about applying this principle to anything other than contraception. For instance, when the human papillomavirus vaccination was being given to young secondary school girls, it is only done with the parents' signed permission. If they refuse, then the injection isn't given, because the nurses and schools know that they would be on very shaky ground legally. I think the parents who decline that vaccine on their child's behalf, the HPV vaccine, are muddle-headed and wrong, but I accept that they have a perfect right to do so and are acting in what they see as their child's best interests. Now, for the first time, we are told by the NHS that even if parents refuse permission for a COVID-19 vaccine, then it may be given anyway if their child consents. This sets a terrible precedent. It is one thing for me as an adult to be able to research the matter, weigh up the pros and cons of a vaccination, and then to make an informed decision. But what 12-year-old is capable of giving this kind of informed consent? The whole idea is a nonsense. For those who had never heard before about Gillick Competence, I can assure you it's never been used before for anything of this kind. The original decision which created the concept of Gillick Competence has been around for 35 years or so, and nobody has ever thought to apply it to children consenting to injections against the wishes of their parents. Even for a government which has been making some pretty awful decisions lately, this one stands out as especially unfortunate.